Welcome back to another episode of Inside the Mind. Today we're joined by the now retired head coach of track and field, Shaun Meinecke. And Coach, how are we doing this morning?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. Retired from S&T, not retired from life. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I guess we'll start with that. Maybe a shock to a lot of people here around the department, your retirement that you just announced in the past month. Kind of walk me through that decision. And, I mean, you're just a legend around these halls now at S&T after that decision. So.
Well, I appreciate that. It's been a fantastic 8 years. And, sometimes you can't have it both ways. And I talked to Melissa a little bit about this a couple weeks ago, but, one lesson that we should learn through life is family first. And I want to make sure that both my family here in Rolla as well as my family up in Iowa is taken care of.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good time to get back and spend a lot more quality time with them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, before we get into your career accolades, we can talk about this past season first. So, obviously coming in, a lot of coaches of the year, but coming into this season, maybe a different challenge. You have Lincoln that joined the conference, one of the powerhouses in the nation in track and field. Kind of talk to me about that and just how the conference shaped out going into this season.
Well, the good news was Lincoln wasn't just, dropped into our lap in one summer and it was like, here you go, deal with Lincoln. So we had a little bit of time to plan. And as far as the concept of game planning for track and field is concerned, sometimes that might be lost upon some people. But you really are moving chess pieces around quite often and trying to figure out where you can score your points and where the biggest values are on your team. Lincoln brought a very different dynamic in a heavy sprints, jumps-oriented team. And it definitely shook up some things. It was, and I tell you what, it was something that I didn't anticipate seeing, but they're raising the level to the national caliber, raised so many teams level to the national caliber. And I think the GLVC as a whole this year had some amazing success, not just in the conference level, but on the national level as well. And I attribute that to just everyone having to step up and compete at a higher level.
Yeah. We'll talk about the indoor championship that took place back in March. Ethan Crouch, Maya Wright, they both scored and they both won. Talk to me about those two players you had in the indoor season.
Well, so Maya and her older brother Sam are both here. And Sam just graduated, but they've been around this program for years now, and it's been a fantastic experience being able to work with them and meet the family and just have a large group of S&T supporters that they have with them. Ethan's hometown. Ethan's a Rolla, Missouri kid.
Yeah.
He initially went over to Springfield and came back to do track and field with us. I knew of him when he was at Rolla High. Great, it goes without saying sometimes, but we still have to say it. Great people, great people to work with on a daily basis. Great ambassadors for our team and our department. So I couldn't have been happier to see those two stand at the top of the podium.
Yeah. So moving on to the the outdoor season after both of those scored. You had a lot of players stand out during that outdoor season. In total, you guys finished in third in the men, fifth in women. Kind of talk to me about some of your scores and your winners there, and we'll get to Owen Frazier a little bit later as well too.
Yeah. We always get to him.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It was an interesting all-around season. The indoor season, we sat a few guys on the men's side and got them ready after maybe a long fall or maybe a co-op where they were off campus, things like that. It took a minute for the entire team to regroup from indoors was more or less a little bit of a lashing for us. Yeah. And I think it took a little bit for us to believe that we were still the same team that we have been the previous 4 years, the previous 7 years. We finally started to get a little bit of that swagger back, and unfortunately for the men, the old injury bug, you know, it's some years you're lucky and some years you're not, and I felt like this year we got hit a little heavier than we had in the past. For both the men and the women, though, the people who were still capable of competing, the people who were able to put their best foot forward, what a great meet for them.
Yeah.
They exceeded my expectations, and for us to finish in that third and fifth level was pretty impressive.
Yeah, we'll talk about some of the standouts. We'll start with Jake Salazar-Blair, who won the javelin at the GLVC Championship.
Jake Salazar-Blair, better to be lucky than good on my part as far as a recruiter. Jake Salazar-Blair emails me sometime in February, I think, and says, "Hey, I'm playing soccer for Coach Rob. By the way, I could really wing it when I was in high school. Would you mind if I came out and threw some javelin for you?"
Wow.
Not only did I not mind, put him on the bus, and he ends up being a conference champ for us. So what a diamond to find on your own campus.
Yeah. I mean, you're very close with Coach Rob. I'm sure you talked to him about him and how he plays on the soccer field. Just kind of talk to me about that conversation you had with Coach Cummings.
Oh, it was hilarious, to see the support of the soccer team when Jake won, and to hear about his interactions with them when he came back and how excited they all were for him too. Track and field is an interesting one where, if you're talking about multi-sport athletes here at S&T, I've had Ali Van Cardo played volleyball and is our school record holder in the 800. Recently, Paul Van Horten as a defensive back, and then he was a GLVC Field Athlete of the Year indoors. We've had tons of success kind of meshing sports here, and I'm so thankful to have guys like Rob and Andy that are supportive of our program and allow their guys to chase their dreams on multiple fronts like that.
We'll talk about some other people as well that performed this season. Talk about Maya and Sam Wright, but Sydney Morris in her first year, how about the season she had?
Sydney started to get hot towards the end of her high school career. Coming in and working with Coach Hammock, she just kind of kept the ball rolling and had, late in the year when the lights start getting the brightest, she stepped up and reset our school record. I'm not sure how many times, but for a true freshman to come in and put those kind of performances up, not just during the regular season, but put them up during the championship portion, that's very impressive on Sydney's part.
Yeah. We'll talk about one of your All-Americans, Otto Knittel. You'll get one more semester with him next year, the new coaching staff will. But kind of talk to me about his season and what he has to look forward to in the next indoor season.
Yeah, Otto has a lot to look forward to. Last year in 2024 at Emporia, he came up with a little bit of a hamstring strain at Nationals. And, we not only took that as a lesson learned at the time, but also a minute to kind of say, what do we need to do to be competitive at that level? So while he was rehabbing that, at the same time, he was hitting the weight room, and one of the goals was to put on 10 to 15 pounds before the spring semester started again. And he attacked that like a man on fire, and he came back in his throat. Some of the things that he was weakest in, and this is what a multi-eventer does, is some of the things that you're weakest in, you address those. They became his strong points at this year's national championships, and he will be, if I'm not mistaken, that was a pretty senior-laden decathlon class at the outdoor championships, so he will be one of the top returners for the indoor championships. And as hard as that man has worked, he's earned every minute of it. Another
player that broke some records this year, Haley Smith. She broke the indoor and outdoor triple jump record. She was also named the SAC Female Athlete of the Year over the SAC department over there. Talk to me about her season that she had.
Well, I mean, for her to be named the Female Student Athlete of the Year, I mean, Haley could tell you firsthand that she was amazed that it was awarded to her because of girls like Caitlin and Maya and across the board, the softball team, Sydney, they all had such amazing years over the past year and a half that for her to win that individual accolade was pretty cool, and it shows a great amount of respect that people have for her as a student athlete. Melissa will tell you, Ringhausen, she'll
Yeah.
tell you that back in the day we hosted an AAU meet here, and Haley Smith was one of the competitors here, and she had introduced herself to Melissa. And Melissa still remembers that conversation as a young lady who was really driven to pursue engineering at S&T. And for her to turn out as a multi-time school record holder already has been pretty fun.
Yeah. We'll also talk about Henry Bourne, who had a really good cross-country season that came over to you and had a great track season. Just talk to me about his whole year that he had.
Well, Coach Knudsen in his first year with Cross, I can tell that he meshes really well with the student athletes, and they love his ambition and they love his drive for success. Henry, he came out of high school as a great high school runner. His improvement curve, at some point in time you think, well, the improvement curve can't be that steep all of the time, but he continues to reset his own records. And for him to be the first NCAA qualifier in cross country since you're the stat man, way back when. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm getting to the John Keane level. I'll get there at some point.
So but he ran a long season and he performed great for cross country. And then he was one of the gentlemen that we gave a break from the indoor season. Just it's hard to peak that many times in a season.
Yeah.
And I would say it paid off relatively well. Unfortunately for Henry, he was kind of almost the first man out in both the 15 and the 5K for outdoor nationals. Yeah. But, you spoke of Otto looking ahead to indoors. I look ahead at what Henry could do on the indoor level, adding in the 3K. He's set up to be a pretty high qualifier in whatever he chooses, whether that be the mile through the 5K indoors.
Yeah, and that's after the cross-country season he could have next year as well, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. We will talk about the aforementioned Owen Fraser, the national champion, the first ever national champion in track and field history. Talk to me about the build-up he had this season and if you saw what he could be at the potential when you recruited him.
There's a difference between what you hope for and what you expect. Yeah. And, anyone who knows Owen knows his work ethic is, it's got to be close to second to none. Yeah. I mean, he's out there every day. I go back to what I said about Otto. There's a young man who's earned every minute of it. Owen, coming out of high school, came out of a great program in Kirksville. His freshman year, he always showed the potential for the big throws. It was always a matter of consistency. This last year in the fall, he had a co-op up in St. Joseph, Missouri, and he actually took that time, got in the weight room, put on a good amount of muscle and explosiveness. We talked even then about possibly redshirting when he came back.
Wow,
it's just a matter of, well, have you been able to throw? No? Yeah. Well, then maybe we should save this for another day. Mm-hmm. At that point in time was when we really started thinking, and when he came back onto campus this January, he was already throwing bombs. Yeah. And it was within his first couple weeks of picking up implements again. Mm-hmm. But the reality of it is, would you rather throw really good right now or in 2 years have the potential to win a few more national championships? Yeah. So we sat for that indoor season. The way his discus took off, he just put in the base work. He got stronger. He got tons of reps up on the hill. And after a while, it just became commonplace. There was a period of time where it blew my mind when he threw 58 meters. Yeah. And now you go to nationals and he just knocks out, 5 of them or something like that?
59.29 was the winning throw for him.
Yeah, and then he had 4 or 5 throws all at that level. Yeah. And now it's, when you start training, you try to maybe hit one every 15-20% of the time. Mm-hmm. And that'll get you through. And then after a while, you want to start saying, 40% of the time I'm on, 60% of the time I'm on. Yeah. So his comfort level with those events is getting to a point where, not only do you get to see that high level of performance, you get to see that 20% move up to 61, 62 meters in discus. But We've had some great athletes here at S&T. For him to be the first individual national champion is really something else.
And he's one of the first. I think the swimmer got it before him to win an individual national champion at Missouri S&T. That's just a big honor for him. And Gary Hammock, too. Talk to me about him and the coach that he is. He's been around for a long time.
How much time do you have for me to talk to you about Gary Hammock?
We can go as long as we need to, right? I mean...
Gary and I have some good times.
Yeah.
Gary has put in so much time and energy. A 13-year volunteer coach here, and not just that, but a 13-year volunteer coach of an event group that scores 60 to 75 points on the conference level, and has produced, if I'm not mistaken, outside of Otto, probably 6 of our last All-Americans, first-team All-Americans at S&T.
Yeah.
It didn't just start with Owen. He's just the last name in a long line of the Jacob Luberts, the Nate Swadleys, the John Karstens that go all the way back. Garrett Miller was one of our first crossover football and track and field athletes. And then we already mentioned Sydney Morris on the women's side. So Gary has just an unbridled passion for the throws. We call them throws junkies.
Yeah.
He is really bad at cribbage, and I will say that. And that's unfortunate for him because he really likes to play it.
Yeah.
So I guess when he takes those hits on the cribbage side, he makes up for it by winning a few of those All-Americans on the throws side.
Yeah, and a national champion too, right?
Yeah. So, I win the cribbage, he wins the throws, national championship, it's all good.
Yeah, you guys are even then, right? Well, we'll talk about your whole coaching career. I mean, you had experience at the D1 level. You were at Wyoming, but you came to S&T in 2018. In 8 seasons, you had 7 GLVC championships in indoor and outdoor, 51 total event winners in the GLVC, and obviously a national champion this year, 5 total athlete of the year, 4 freshman of the year winners, and you won coach of the year 7 times in your time at Missouri S&T. Just talk to me about the career you've had at S&T now, looking upon retirement.
Well, I still remember, I was in my kitchen in Laramie, Wyoming, when Mark Mullen gave me a phone call and said they'd like to bring me on as the head coach.
Yeah.
And Mark and I have stayed in touch even after his retirement. He took a chance on me, and I will be forever grateful for him, because it turned out as a great place to not only grow my career and work on some things as a coach that maybe I had been ignoring in the past. This was my first head coaching experience again since 2003.
Right.
Little bit of a Kerouac gap in there.
Right.
2003, 2004 head coach.
Yeah.
And then went the assistant coaching path for a few years. And he gave me the opportunity to build a program in the image that I saw that would fit S&T. And then turned the reins over to Melissa, and Melissa basically, would say, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I love it. I don't know what you're working on out there, but it seems to be working. The student athletes here are a unique set. I never really have to worry about them, I don't think. Sometimes that bites me a little bit, I guess. But they are a very intrinsically motivated group. And I don't even just say that about track and field. I say that about all the S&T kids here.
Yeah.
Not even the student athletes, just the kids. They're all intrinsically motivated. They have a strong desire to succeed. I don't really feel compelled to push that on them. I'd rather let them kind of bring that out themselves. So we brought it to life here. It's what we've created, I think, is a little bit of an autonomous machine. When I talk about Owen going and doing his thing up on the hill, that's not unique. I'll see Caden Snyder out there every day even over the summer. The miles that these distance runners are logging on the roads right now are endless.
Yeah.
As much as one would like to give me credit as far as the Coach of the Year awards and everything, those kids earned those Coach of the Year awards for me.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't. Yeah, I don't really feel like it was me mandating that a group perform. That's if we created an environment where they wanted to perform, then albeit that's where they did it.
Yeah.
So. I go back and I love what you're reading there, Luke. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I love to hear it, man.
I got to say it, right?
But at the same time, there were times at conference meets where I felt like a spectator, and a very lucky one at that, as I just sat and watched everything happen and know that these guys were motivated to win the championship.
Yeah. Coach, last thing I'll ask you, do you have any final messages toward your fellow student athletes, any alumni of the track program, just anybody in Rolla, any fans of Missouri S&T track and field?
Well, I have been lucky and I've taken some opportunities too here to not just I guess not just be a member of the S&T family here, but kind of get to know a lot of Rolla too.
Yeah.
And I just encourage everybody to kind of get out and interact a lot with that, because S&T by itself sits over here in Rolla, and then Rolla's over there. But I mean, there's a lot of good things that are happening on both sides.
Yeah.
And I'm a lucky guy. I've got a wife and 2 great kids that are, they've kept me busy, and I've been able to take my kids up onto S&T. Some of their favorite memories are going to be going to the paleontology department.
Yeah.
And these things aren't isolated to S&T. These are things that I want to explore just with Rolla and S&T combined. I love what the STEM Education Center's doing. I love it. Their interactions with people are remarkable.
Yeah.
I like thinking of myself as a member of the Rolla community as opposed to just a member of the S&T community.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, Coach, thank you for everything the last 8 years you gave to this program. I know everybody appreciates you. You're one of the most humble coaches I've ever met in my time here. So thank you so much, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you, Luke.